Hi there, I'm the Mythkeeper. Welcome back to my channel, the best place on the internet for Pathfinder lore and history. If you like this kind of content, be sure to like and subscribe. And if there's anything you'd like me to talk about in particular, let me know in the comments below. This week we're going back to my religion series, and I'm talking about another group of outsiders that don't reside on the outer planes. They reside on the material planes instead. I'm talking about the Demodands. And the Demodands are unique because they were created by the Thanatotic Titans, a unique outsider race to Pathfinder. I think this video is a lot of fun. Enjoy.
On this episode in my religion series, I'm kicking off a quadrilogy of videos focused on post-mortals that principally reside on the material plane. I've already discussed at great length in my previous videos that life in the Pathfinder universe typically observes a two-staged existence. This is best discussed in my Planar Cosmology 101 video, which discusses the River of Souls and the other transitive planes and explains how life force passes from the forge of creation into new life born in the material universe. After death, that life force transitions into the second stage of its existence. Typically, these two stages are differentiated as mortal life, represented by humans, dwarves, elves, and so on, and post-mortal life, represented by petitioners, angels, devils, and demons. Post-mortal life forms tend to reside in a part of the cosmology referred to as the outer planes, which you can think of as being the heavens, hells, and places in between that judged souls go to after death. In game terms, at least in 1st and 2nd edition, post-mortals use the generic term outsider, as opposed to humanoid, to represent them. Despite this name, as we've seen in some of my other videos, not all post-mortal life remains in the outer planes forever, so the term outsider is not always accurate. For a start, post-mortals, just like mortals, have free will and agency, and they are typically quite powerful entities that have learned how to move between the planes. So many post-mortals can be found in other parts of the Great Beyond. Furthermore, some post-mortal life forms have established permanent homes for themselves outside of the outer planes. This is more commonly the case among the fiends than it is among the celestials. I've already discussed the hedonistic Velstrax, which live in the plane of shadow, and the fearsome Sakils, which reside on the ethereal plane. However, as we'll see in the next few videos, there are a number of post-mortals that have chosen to make the material plane their primary dwelling place. As we've discussed in our general cosmology video, the universe of the material plane is impossibly vast, perhaps even infinite in scale, but current scientific estimates posit there are 200 billion trillion stars in the universe and almost 3 times as many planets as that. Not surprisingly, in such a vast expanse of physical space, numerous cultures of post-mortals could choose to lie low in the material universe and remain relatively undetected. Providing a total accounting of all such creatures in the universe would be a task beyond reckoning, but fortunately in these videos we are predominantly interested in the world of Golarion. On Golarion, there are 4 prominent outsider types that have chosen to reside primarily on this world. Most prominently in Avestan and Garand, we can find the Titan-spawned Demodands. In Vudra and other parts of Kazmarin, we can find the shape-shifting and tyrannical Rakshasa. Finally, on the continent of Tianxia, there are the spirits known as the Kami, who favor woodlands and other natural environments. Related to the Kami are their fallen kindred, the Oni, who we will also discuss in this series. All 4 have reasons for ending up on the material plane, and all 4 are unique outsider types in their own right, with their own ascended leaders who are counted among the demigods of Pathfinder. In each of these videos, I will discuss the common forms these beings take and the known demigods of their kind. Today we start by looking at the Demodands. The history of the Demodands. We'll start my introduction to Demodands with a brief recap of the history of the Outer Planes. At this point in my religion series, I've pretty accurately documented the complete history of the Outer Planes, so for more details on individual events I reference here, I can now point you to some additional videos. At the dawn of time, the Outer Planes were dominated by a vast, timeless ocean of chaos, known as the Maelstrom, and its native denizens were the Proteans. Though they thought they were alone in the Great Beyond at first, they were not. Concealed in the sky above this ocean, a place known as the Astral Plane, were another ancient race, the Eons. Also secreted away in a demiplane hidden at the boundaries between the astral sky and the sea of the Maelstrom was a pocket dimension known as the Boneyard, which contained the last surviving vestiges of the last universe. Among them was a goddess who was then known as the Survivor, but whom we have come to know now as Pharasma. The Boneyard was also the secret birthplace of the other of the first 8 deities of Golarion. Though not all are named, among them were Desna, Sarenrae, Achekek, and the brothers Ehis and Asmodeus. For a while, Pharasma and the young gods remained in hiding, along with the Eons and their creator, another echo of the previous universe known as the Monad. But then the Monad and the Eons found their opportunity to introduce order into the raw chaos of the timeless maelstrom. The Protean discovered another gestating plane of chaos, a place called the Abyss, from which the Clipoths emerged. The war between the Proteans and the Clipoths distracted the Proteans long enough for the Eons and the denizens of the Boneyard to construct the plane of Axis, a bastion of order to resist the inexorable tide of chaos. A great war followed between order and chaos, but especially between the Proteans and the Eons, a war that is covered in more detail in my Proteans and Eons deep dive videos. By the time Axis was established, the first gods had come into maturity, and they took hands at shaping both the inner and outer spheres. Some focused on establishing the other planes of the outer sphere. Heaven, Nirvana, and Elysium chief among them, but also Abaddon and Hell were shaped in this time, though the latter was a very different place in its inception. You can watch the various videos about my demigod series, especially my demon and devil videos, for more details here. Curiously, my video on the Velstrax provides the best accounting of the history of Hell so far as well. Other gods focused on creating worlds and life in the material universe. According to common theological lore, the gods decided to experiment with various types of physics and life forms using the first world as a rough draft of creation. Shaping the worlds and peoples of an entire universe was hard work, even for the gods, so they created helpers in their tasks. First they created the Elohim, whom they tasked with shaping various concepts and ideas for life on the first world. When the gods hit upon a configuration they enjoyed, they abandoned the first world. They did not, however, retain the services of the Elohim, who were great at concepting, but less reliable at following direct instruction. Thus they freed the Elohim to continue their own designs in the astral plane, where they continue to create demiplanes which they seed with strange new life forms before moving on again to other random ideas. The Elohim are discussed in more detail in my Transitive Planes video. As a replacement to the Elohim, once the gods decided to finally shape the material universe into a cosmos of their liking, they gave life to the first Titans. The Titans were of staggering shape and size, standing 100 feet tall and weighing several dozen tons. They also possessed powerful magics they could use to shape worlds and alter life. The gods wished to use their first children as the builders of the universe, whom they would send from world to world, sharing their vision for what the world should look like and what manner of beings might live upon it. The Titans are also described in more detail in my Giants Creature Feature video, as the children of the giants were the Gigas, prodigious beings towering almost 50 feet in height and weighing over a dozen tons, and in turn their children were the mortal stone giants, who are believed to have been the progenitor form of most giant subtypes that dwell on Galarian today. In any case, in order for the Titans to complete the task set before them by the gods, they were imbued with godlike power to shape and command the cosmos. In bequeathing them this power, the gods may have overreached slightly, as for unknown reasons, the Titans rebelled against their progenitors, declaring themselves the true lords of creation. Entire planes were destroyed in the ensuing war, but in the end the gods emerged victorious, banishing their rebellious children, the Thanatotic Titans, to the Abyss. Some rarer Titans, the Elysian Titans who had sought for peace with the gods, were instead rewarded with realms of their own and free access to every corner of the great beyond. As the Thanatotic Titans brooded within their planar prison, their envy and craving for divine power burgeoned into a hubristic conviction that even in their exile they could still fashion life of their own. Seeking to validate this notion and amass a following, the Titans shaped clay, blended from the sinister black earth of the abyss and the noxious waters of the river Styx. Having molded this dark clay into their own likeness, the Thanatotic Titans infused their creation with their own blood, and breathed life into the puppet's lungs. Thus, the Demodands were born. For a fleeting moment, as life flickered in their eyes and the fallen Titans were pleased with their work, the Demodands appeared nearly physically flawless, but they were swiftly marred by the innate corruption of the abyss. Shortly after drawing their initial breaths, the flesh of the Demodands began to contort. Their smiles twisted into maniacal grins. Their majestic wings frayed and withered, and their finely sculpted bodies swelled and bloated. Some developed folds of sweating, bulbous skin, while others lost all muscle tone and became emaciated. Thick, putrid fur sprouted on some, while others found themselves with toad-like heads or covered in a viscous, tarry goo. Despite their deformities, Demodands possessed the prime quality coveted by their Titan creators. They proved more loyal than the Titans could have envisioned. Rather than harboring anger or resentment for their hideous forms, Demodands reveled in being granted the spark of life, and embraced their monstrous appearance. They were inherently devoted to the blasphemous cause of their creators, inheriting their master's disdain for the divine. Tasked by the Titans to disrupt the peaceful orders of the gods and sow anarchy wherever they roamed, Demodands eagerly embraced their role. Demodands are not just revoltingly fearsome and impossibly strong, their devotion to chaos and fondness for intimidation also enables their words to wriggle into mortals' faith and crumble it from within. Demodands particularly delight in killing, torturing, or turning divine agents, such as clerics and paladins, away from their faiths and divine patrons. Their masters, the Thanatotic Titans, remain universally bitter, cruel, and jealous of both the gods and the Elysian Titans, who can wander the planes at will while they themselves by divine decree are bound to the abyss, able to leave only rarely through stealth and cunning. Thus, although the Demodands are all born on the abyss, they rarely remain there. Most will make a journey in their lifetime to the material universe, and thus in turn their Titan masters may experience the greater world vicariously through their minions. Though horribly misshapen by their creators, the Thanatotic Titans' Demodand servants are unfailingly loyal to the Titans, and assist them in their vain attempts to conquer the multiverse, which they now wage through subterfuge rather than open warfare. In current Demodand society, such as it is, a single dictum prevails: might makes right. They shun family structures, alliances, and social contracts, instead prioritizing the advancement of the vengeful agendas of their Titan masters. Only strength and commitment to their cause gives one the right to rule in their worldview. Demodands resolve internal conflicts based on the nature of the dispute. Verbal disagreements usually culminate in tests of physical might, not always lethal in nature. However, conflicts escalating beyond words result in deadly confrontations. They are also unswervingly loyal, so when commanded by their Titan masters to fulfill missions at any costs, Demodands don't hesitate to eliminate even their own kind if they obstruct their orders. Their allegiance to the Thanatotic Titans extends to all of their kindreds. Some Demodands, however, pledge themselves to specific Titans and reject service to those opposing their chosen patron. Fulfilling diverse roles to meet the needs of their Titan masters, Demodands serve as generals, shock troops, grunts, slavers, enforcers, and torturers. Specialized types possess unique qualities suited to specific roles. Demodands are frequently instructed to venture to the material plane, sowing heresy and rebellion among religious orders. They deface temples, kill or capture holy leaders, and cast doubt on deities' abilities to protect their followers. Acting as proxies for the Thanatotic Titans who cannot leave the abyss without provoking the gods, Demodands may also answer calls from chaos and destruction cults or anti-theists seeking aid against the divine. To amass minions for the Thanatotic Titans, Demodands engage in widespread slavery, capturing enemies to serve as potential recruits. Celestial beings, particularly angels, are high-value captives, viewed as incarnate forms of the concept Demodands were created to destroy. They also harbor enmity towards demons, as the Titans also frequently engage with them in conflict for dominance in the abyss. Demodands take great pleasure in making demons slaves for their masters, using the strongest captured demons for various roles, from bodyguards to living magic items. Unruly demonic captives may find themselves in the Thanatotic Titans' arenas, providing entertainment in massive gladiator brawls that can span weeks in length. When not sent to the material plane by order of a Titan master, Demodands may still make their way to the material plane anyway. Many are called there by powerful spellcasters to aid in some inscrutable plot. In these situations, Demodands dwell in the lairs of those who call them, serving multiple roles as advisors, guardians, and living weapons. Demodands have been known to bargain with liches and other evil spellcasters, particularly if they serve or are aligned with the will of the creature's masters. For the rare Demodands that find their way to the material plane by venturing through one of the abyss's transitory rifts, the need for secure shelter becomes incredibly important. They often make homes in places similar to those they occupy in the abyss: dark caves, cramped warrens of tunnels, sunless canyons, and even the murky sewers of some of Galarian's biggest cities. Curiously, spending too much time on the material plane seems to decay Demodand sanity, driving them to paranoia about divine agents conspiring to destroy them. This obsessive paranoia can make Demodands unpredictable and dangerous foes. The breeds of Demodands. The common Demodand breeds, arranged from greatest to least, are as follows. Shaggy Demodands are hulking beings with thick, putrid fur in varying shades of gray, brown, or black. They are the largest of the Demodand breeds, and they emit a noxious, rotting odor from their morbidly obese bodies. These creatures assume leadership roles within the Thanatotic Titans' abyssal armies, priding themselves on claiming the most kills and causing extensive destruction on the battlefield. Their leadership style combines intellect with sheer strength, as they map battle plans, expand Demodand holdings, and lead forces to capture and enslave demons, particularly incubi and succubi, as well as leading various incursions into the material universe. While occasionally serving as military advisors, they prefer to engage in the visceral satisfaction of bloodshed directly over barking orders to their minions. Squamous Demodands were among the last of the abyssal Demodands into which the Thanatotic Titans breathed life. After their creation, the eldest of the shaggy Demodands came to an agreement, an uncommon occurrence for the chaotic creatures, that they needed much more powerful allies if they were to win ground in the abyss. These Demodands approached their creators with this idea. Suppressing the urge to quash their upstart creations, the Thanatotic Titans admitted the merit of creating an enormous, mighty, monstrous type of Demodand to serve in their armies as wanton destroyers that would herald the Titans' vision of a godless multiverse. Thus the Titans formed the Squamous Demodands by fusing the flesh of shaggy Demodands with armor-like scales pulled from the essence of the abyss itself. Squamous Demodands still stand today as the most terrible, hulking, and murderous of their kind. Though physically the largest of all the Demodand kind, they are also among the stupidest. Other Demodands, particularly shaggy Demodands, which have spent millennia learning how to focus these monstrosities, make sure that the Squamous Demodands first finish destroying structures that stand in their army's ways before allowing them to fulfill their dark lusts and gorge on their kills. Gristly Demodands have skin that is stretched so taut over rolls of fat and cartilaginous flesh that it continually rips and splits. A yellow-white mucus constantly oozes out from within to heal these superficial tears, keeping its body, which becomes a mass of interlaced scar tissue, relatively intact. Gristly Demodands delight in inflicting pain and suffering, eagerly fulfilling their roles in Demodand culture as assassins, executioners, and torturers. These fiends conduct special missions of reconnaissance, sabotage, and violent destruction, frequently leading crack units of other smaller Demodands into hostile lands, where they attack key demonic installations in order to subject their captives to brutal and insidious torture for the purpose of extracting information. Slimy Demodands, though smaller than the shaggy Demodands, tend to be quicker and have better defined musculature. Their powerful, compact bodies are covered in warm, viscous slime that constantly weeps from their skin. Superficially resembling frogs with wide mouths, tiny pointed teeth, and wide-set beady eyes, they serve as shock troops for the Thanatotic Titans. In both large armies and small isolated groups, they leverage ferocity and physical repulsiveness to intimidate their enemies, shattering their resolve before tearing them apart with acidic teeth and claws. While some engage in slaving, they often leave this role to their stringy kin, preferring instead to conclude their own combats with total annihilation. Stringy Demodands, lean and strong, possess rope-like growths of black skin hanging from their putrid bodies. Using their exceptionally dexterous prehensile growths, they excel at lashing out and ensnaring their enemies, making them adept captors and slavers. As sociopathic and tyrannical monsters, the Stringy Demodands make for highly effective jailers among the Titan servants, and indeed their only deficiency in this role is their intense enthusiasm for savagery and violence that occasionally leads to the deaths of those left in their charge. Tarry Demodands, lithe and agile, produce a black tacky discharge that seeps from their skin like tar. In combat they use this discharge to mire opponents' weapons and disarm them. While their claws are formidable, they favor a light weapon in each hand, particularly short swords of wicked design. As the most numerous Demodands, they find satisfaction in performing grunt work for their masters, collaborating to overwhelm enemies with sheer numbers. Excelling in routine reconnaissance, infiltration, and tasks requiring agility, they prove valuable in fulfilling the Thanatotic Titans' various needs. Demodands of Renown. Now, most outsiders that we've discussed in my religion series have ascended kindred among their kind, whose power and influence equate to those of lesser divinities, demigods, so to speak. However, among the Demodands, this is not the case. No Demodands have risen to the power of demigod, and this is likely due to the divine decree that limits the power of the Titans who created them, to prevent them from challenging the gods ever again. Nevertheless, there are unique Demodands as well, and though they lack the power to confer divine energy to mortal worshippers, they nevertheless acquire gatherings of mortal kind who see them as inspirational leaders. A few notable examples of these malevolent beings wreaking havoc on Golarion include Gulagote. Unaffected by his prolonged stay on the material plane, Lord Gulagote has meticulously honed and channeled his rage, using it to both maintain composure in battle and strike fear into opponents with a mere glance. Renowned for his emotional control, Gulagote has assumed a leadership role over a small army of tarry Demodands. Together they sow terror among the clerical orders in the lands of the Linorm kings. Their particular disdain is directed towards the faiths of Gorum and Torag, targeting settlements with large congregations of faithful to subvert and turn against each other. Engaging in outright warfare and guerrilla tactics, Gulagote revels in fomenting chaos. And here in the Linorm kingdoms, he has learned to exploit the Ulfin's natural inclination towards conflict. Cathoth. A remarkably vicious and volatile Demodand, Cathoth has taken it upon herself to obliterate followers of Desna, whom she has come to believe emerged as a traitor to the cause of chaos during the Age of Creation. She can be found in Keonin, where she rampages through the land, destroying Desna's temples, slaughtering Desnan clerics, and leaving blasphemous messages in their blood to shake the faith of witnesses. While other Demodands often undertake less conspicuous assaults on the material plane, Cathoth proudly announces her existence in the wilds of Keonin, constantly on the move to evade the elves who seek to hunt her down. Tedat. Brought to Nidal by a powerful wizard nearly a decade ago, Tedat is a sinister Demodand whose forces have besieged the Tower of Slant Shadows. Tedat is also discussed in my Nidal deep dive video as well. Summoned from the abyss by a cunning Nidalese wizard, Tedat has taken responsibility for the wizard's growing collection of servants, slaves, and prospective biological experiments. Despite their common goals, Tedat's propensity for excessive torture occasionally leads to clashes with his mortal ally. Tedat is opposed in his plans by various factions, including rebel worshippers of Desna, fearsome cults of Rovagug who have their own plans for the tower, and the mysterious mistress of the tower known as Mother Ravel. Ooztooth. Emerging periodically from the wastelands in Kadira, Ooztooth wreaks havoc on the missionaries of Sarenrae. Preferring solo attacks on isolated caravans under the cover of night, Ooztooth has mastered the art of sowing fear among the faithful of the Dawnflower, and he has in particular learned to plunge their clerics that even their magical spells of daylight cannot penetrate. Whether working for a Titan mastermind or functioning as a herald to a larger Demodand force, it remains unclear, but he works alone, striking seemingly at random all across the Golden Road.